The ink bled. She did not stop it. A hand touched hers. She pulled away. Too late. Nefertari looked up. The prince was watching her. He knew. The scroll she carried named him, named his father, named the day they would die. She had written every word, and that is when she understood. She was not a scribe. She was the weapon. This is Pelusium. She had arrived at the Persian court 3 years earlier, an Egyptian scribe. A gift, so they said, from the temple of Neith in Sais to the great king Cambyses, ruler of the largest empire the world had ever seen. She could read hieroglyphs, hieratic, even the wedge-marked script of Babylon. She was invaluable. She was also a spy. Behind her, the 26th dynasty of Egypt was collapsing from within. Pharaoh Amasis II, cunning, aging, desperate, had spent decades buying peace with Greek mercenaries and Persian tribute. When Cambyses demanded an Egyptian princess for his harem, Amasis did not send his own daughter. He sent Nefertari, daughter of the king he had murdered, to seize the throne. He dressed her in gold and called her his own. The girl told Cambyses the truth. The Persian king, humiliated, began gathering his armies. Amasis would not live to see the consequences. He died in 526 BCE, passing a poisoned crown to his son, Psamtik III, a young man who had ruled for barely 6 months. 6 months. And then the Persians came. But before the armies marched, before the shields locked and the arrows blackened the sun, there was Nefertari, and there was the prince. He was not the heir. Bardiya, younger son of Cyrus the Great, brother to Cambyses. Where the great king was cold and mercurial, Bardiya was warm, curious, gentle, fascinated by Egypt. He would find Nefertari in the royal scriptorium, asking her to read the old prayers. She taught him the names of Egyptian gods. He taught her Persian words. His hand touched hers. She let it stay. But this disaster did not begin in the scriptorium. Egypt in the 6th century BCE was ancient, impossibly ancient. When Cambyses looked west across the Sinai, he was not looking at a rival empire. He was looking at a civilization that had already been old when Babylon was founded, when Troy burned, when the first stones of Jerusalem were laid. And yet, it was rotting. Amasis II had ruled for 44 years. He was a former general who had seized the throne by rebellion. He was clever. He understood that Egypt could not match Persia in open war. So he played the long game. Tribute, flattery, strategic marriages he never intended to honor. When Cyrus the Great asked for an Egyptian eye doctor, Amasis sent his best physician, a man torn from his wife and children, exiled to the Persian court against his will. That physician never forgave him. Years later, when Cambyses sent a herald demanding an Egyptian princess for his bed, it was the exiled physician who whispered in the Persian king's ear, "Ask, humiliate him." Amasis would either surrender his daughter to a foreign conqueror or refuse and give Cambyses the war he wanted. Amasis, cornered, chose deception. He sent Nefertari, the daughter of Apis, the pharaoh he himself had overthrown and killed, dressed in royal linen and draped in lies. When Cambyses called her daughter of Amasis, she corrected him. Her father, she said, was dead, murdered by the man you just honored. Cambyses' fury was absolute. But he did not march immediately. The Persian war machine required preparation. Supply lines across the Sinai desert, alliances with Arab chieftains who controlled the watering holes, the mustering of the largest army ever sent against Egypt. And somewhere in the shadows of the Persian court, a young Egyptian woman with ink-stained fingers began writing letters. Amasis died in 526 BCE. His son, Psamtik III, inherited a kingdom already doomed. He was young, untested, and the omens were against him. Rain fell at Thebes, rare, unsettling, interpreted by the priests as the tears of the gods. And then the Persians crossed the Sinai. Cambyses had prepared meticulously. Arab chieftains, bought with Persian gold, guided his army to every hidden well and oasis. The desert crossing, which should have been a graveyard for invading armies, became a road. Behind him marched tens of thousands, Persian immortals in their gleaming scale armor, Median cavalry, Babylonian siege engineers, Ionian Greek marines manning the fleet that hugged the coastline, the largest amphibious operation the ancient world had yet seen. At Pelusium, the ancient fortress that guarded the eastern mouth of the Nile Delta, Psamtik III made his stand. He had gathered his army, Egyptian spearmen, chariots that had not been modernized in centuries, and the hard core of his father's legacy, Greek and Carian mercenaries who fought for coin, not for pharaohs. Inside the Persian camp, Nefertari received her final instruction. The prince, Bardiya, would be positioned on the right flank of the Persian advance. Her mission, to ensure he did not survive the battle. An Egyptian knife. A friendly arrow in the chaos. A message that would cripple the Achaemenid royal house from within. She burned the scroll. She did not burn the truth. What happened next would change everything, and has been misunderstood for 25 centuries. We left her at the edge of betrayal. Now we return to the field where betrayal became legend. Pelusium, 525 BCE dawn. The story everyone knows. Cambyses won because he tied cats to his soldiers' shields. The Egyptians, forbidden by their religion to harm sacred animals, refused to fight. They threw down their weapons and let Persia conquer them. It is a beautiful story. It is also almost certainly wrong. The primary source is Polyaenus, a Macedonian writing 300 years after the battle. Herodotus, who visited Pelusium and walked the battlefield himself, mentions nothing about cats. What he does describe is a brutal, conventional fight that lasted all day and produced a mountain of dead. Modern scholarship regards the cat story as Greek propaganda, a way to mock Egyptian superstition while glorifying Persian cleverness. The real reason Persia won was simpler: overwhelming numbers, superior cavalry, and a young pharaoh who had never commanded a battle. Sometimes history is less romantic than legend, but no less devastating. By midday, the battle had become a slaughter. The Egyptian line, anchored by those Greek mercenaries, held against the first Persian assaults. But holding was not winning. The Persian archers, firing in rotating volleys, turned the Egyptian center into a killing ground. The pharaoh's chariots, designed for an earlier age of war, bogged down in the sand and were picked apart by Median horsemen. In the scriptorium of her mind, Nefertari was writing a letter she would never send. I saw him today. He wore the scale armor of his house. He did not look at me. He rode to the right flank, and I watched him go, and I understood that I would rather die than be the reason he does not return. The Persian cavalry charged. The Egyptian line shattered. 50,000 dead, if we believe the Greek sources, though the number matters less than the result. The last native pharaoh of the 26th dynasty fled to Memphis, his army reduced to dust behind him. Cambyses, cold and victorious, pursued. Pelusium fell, then Memphis, then Egypt. Psamtik III was captured and brought before Cambyses. The Persian king, in what Herodotus describes as a test of the pharaoh's spirit, paraded the defeated man before a spectacle of humiliation. Psamtik's daughter, dressed as a slave, walked past carrying water. Egyptian nobles around him wept. Psamtik looked at the ground and said nothing. Then his son, being led to execution, passed before him. The nobles wailed. Psamtik bowed his head and still said nothing. Finally, an old man, once a friend, now a beggar, shuffled past, and Psamtik wept uncontrollably. When Cambyses asked why, the defeated pharaoh answered, "My own grief was too great to cry out, but the sorrow of my friend deserved tears." Even the Persian king, Herodotus says, was moved. He ordered the son spared, but the messengers arrived too late. The boy had already been cut to pieces. Psamtik was taken to Susa in chains. He would later attempt rebellion and be forced to drink poison. The last pharaoh of independent Egypt died by his own hand, thousands of miles from the Nile. And Nefertari? History does not record her name. The archives of Persian Egypt are silent about the woman who loved a prince and betrayed a kingdom. But the Achaemenid spy system, the eyes and ears of the king, was legendary. Perhaps she was discovered. Perhaps she vanished into the court, her secret buried with the dead at Pelusium. Or perhaps, and this is the version we choose to believe, she found Bardiya in the aftermath, alive, and told him everything. And perhaps, just perhaps, he understood. Cambyses was crowned Pharaoh of Egypt in the temple of Neith at Sais, the same temple that had perhaps sent Nefertari to his court. He took the throne name King of Upper and Lower Egypt, son of Ra. He restored temple revenues, he honored Egyptian gods, he ruled for a time as a legitimate pharaoh. The 27th dynasty had begun. Egypt would remain under Persian rule, with interruptions, until Alexander the Great arrived 2 centuries later. The age of native pharaohs, for all practical purposes, had ended on the sands of Pelusium. And yet, the legend of Cambyses' madness, his desecration of Amasis' mummy, his murder of the sacred Apis bull, these stories, so beloved by Herodotus and later Greek writers, are now understood as Egyptian nationalist propaganda. The Persians were conquerors, yes,